So, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I was raised by a single mother, and she worked multiple jobs to give me the best of everything, education, anything that she could. And I would carry a deck of cards everywhere that I went. She had given it to me when I was about 5 years old. And for me, this deck of cards, it just felt, it was like it wasn't like a toy. It felt like something incredible, like something that only parents would use or grown-ups. And I would carry it everywhere that I went. And one day, while I was waiting for her to finish work, I was at the New York Public Library. And in the library, this librarian just said, "Oh, we got this little book of self-working card tricks. Do you wanna try to learn one?" And I was like, "Yeah."
You were how old?
I was like 5 or something like that. And so she walked me through this very simple mathematical trick. And when my mother showed up to come get me, I did it to her. And because she's a loving mother, she was like, "Ah!" Like oh, it's amazing. So it was not amazing, but I believed it was amazing. So I wanted to continue to impress her. So I would just try to learn more and more magic. And then I started if I would be at her restaurant that she was working at, I would stand up on the chair and I would perform to everybody. So, I just started to get that love and the impulse of just always trying to perform. I didn't realize at the point in time that that's just repetition, which is practice. So it's not that, I'm good at what I do necessarily by default. It's like I've spent a lot of time practicing, performing. Exact. You can assume every day for about, almost 39 years, probably hours a day. The last 20 years, probably most of the time, like 6 hours a day with a deck of cards, or even just thinking. Now, at the same time, I would go to the YMCA, and sometimes I'd wait for her to pick me up there, and I was on the swim team, and I did karate, and on the swim team, because I was born with my feet turned in, I couldn't swim like the other kids. And in Brooklyn, a kid without a dad, it's not good to be the last, you get picked on. So what I started to do is while I was swimming, I realized that if I didn't have to turn my head to breathe, I could actually swim further and faster. So I was able to keep up with the fastest of them. The coach would say, "Stop doing that," but I just didn't listen. I would just keep going and doing laps. And then what started to happen was people were like, "Whoa, he just did 3 laps without breathing." And then what would happen is the older kids would come to watch. And then I would compete against the older kids, not doing laps. I would just go underwater, hold my breath, and they would hold with me, but then they'd go up and down, like 5 times while I held on one breath. I didn't even realize at the time that by staying still and not doing anything, that's way more effective than going up quickly, taking a breath, and coming back down. So that was the beginning of my first experience with what I call endurance, the ability to use your mind to control your body. And then I had a karate teacher named Prince at the YMCA around the same time. And in the winter, in the snow, he would make us run barefoot. And all of the kids hated doing it because it was so like, this is too much. I don't want to do this. But I loved it because it made me a kid with the legs turned in. I felt like tougher than the circumstance. So that was the beginning of me loving to do these things where I use my mind to override the body and what it says. And I realized it's pretty effective that way. You can really do things that scientists and doctors, would normally say, "Oh, that's not possible." And because I used to always love doing magic to my mother and her friends, and back in the late 70s, my mother was like macrobiotic and a health nut. We had seaweed in the cabinets and stuff like that, which was weird. So her friends were obviously really into that whole, health nutrition, or they say health nut back then. So they were all very spiritual and things like that. So when a 5-year-old is doing magic to them, it seems like I'm doing something real. I would stare off and then stare back at them and do a trick, and they'd all go crazy because they thought I was doing something really bizarre. But it really was just a card trick. So I realized it was all how you present it. Well, then, if I could do 4 days, I'm certain I can do 7. So usually I don't go to the full distance. I usually estimate just over half. And then once I get to the halfway mark, I count backwards and push to the end.
Are people around you telling you, actually, "No, David, stop, this is crazy"?
Yeah, everybody.
And you just block them out, or you say, "No, I can do this"? Do you reassure them, or just
I listen to all the doctors, all my friends, and then just try to override their theories on why it can't be done. Yeah, which is very easy to do. I have a friend that was a physiologist up at NASA, and would look into records of how long people survive starvation, how long people could survive without oxygen. So I already knew that there was, when I did the breath hold, I did 20 minutes and 2 seconds with a bunch of scientists and doctors around. I was underwater. My heart rate dropped to 8 beats per minute, and they freaked out and pulled me up. I could have kept going, by the way. Yeah, but so I look into what has been done, and then I realized, oh, if you breathe pure oxygen first, you flush out the CO2. The reason that we have to breathe is not because of the O2 deprivation, it's because of the CO2 buildup in the bloodstream, which makes the pain arise. So if you can override the pain, then you can actually push yourself and not black out. And I think there's a lot of people that think because I'm a magician that there must be a trick to it. And that makes sense, because if I saw a magician do any of these things, I'd be like, okay, like I wouldn't believe any of it. But I think it's actually, ironically, it's actually easier to do it than to fake it, because I wanted to do things that I thought looked impossible but could actually be done. I don't ask, I usually just think about what I want to do and then try to figure out how to do it. And I think every decision that I make is usually based on just, dreaming, thinking, tweaking, figuring it out. But if you start asking everybody what they want, then you'll never get anywhere.